You are listening to the podcast of New Life Church in Wayland, Michigan. Our longing is to see 0 people in our community living unchanged by Jesus. We are a church navigating the messiness of life together in community. One of our core convictions is that everyone is welcome, no one is perfect, and anything is possible. I hope you know there is a place in the family for you here. For more information on gathering times and location, check out our website, newlifewayland.org. But for now, I hope God speaks powerfully to you through this word.
Good morning, New Life Church. How are we doing this morning? Good. It is so good to worship with you this morning, and I see a lot of new faces. If you're new, you're just joining us maybe for the first time, or you've been coming for a couple weeks now, I just want to say welcome home. Welcome to you. We are so excited to have you with us, and you picked a really, really good season of the year to be checking things out and to look for opportunities to dive into community. So we are in week 3 of a series right now that we're calling Overcommitted. And this series is all about learning to live at the pace and priorities of Jesus. And so I want to talk today about, at least for me personally, what I believe is one of the most tension-filled areas of the Christian life for me, and I imagine it probably is for some of you as well. And so as we go into the sermon this morning, I want to take you back to the 1970s, long before I existed here on this planet. And in the 1970s, one of the most notorious movie supervillains of all time was introduced to the world. And no, I am not talking about Darth Vader. I'm talking about Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Now you might be sitting there thinking to yourself, why is Grandpa Joe from the Willy Wonka movie one of the greatest and most notorious supervillains of all time? Here is why. Because this man laid in bed for 20 years, 2 decades, while his family starved and lived in poverty. This man shared a bed with 3 other grandparents, like a geriatric sleepover, while his family ate cabbage soup, and his son couldn't even afford a little candy bar. All right, his grandson, couldn't afford a little candy bar. Until his grandson Charlie won a golden ticket to go visit Willy Wonka. And what does Grandpa Joe do? Like a miracle, this 20-year-old invalid, or this 20 years invalid, springs out of bed and is dancing and doing backflips in the living room of their shack. When candy is involved, the lame man can dance. Why is Grandpa Joe such a supervillain? It's because his entire life was built around being comfortable while everyone around him met his needs for him. How many of you, and this is the tension, how many of you have wrestled with or struggled with meeting the needs of others without having set boundaries of your own? I mean, this is a tension that we live in so many different ways. Maybe you're the natural caregiver in your family. And so you're the one who's always checking in, who always feels like they need to fix things. And I do see some spouses looking at each other with smirks right now. I'm not going to call you out or anything. But you're the one who always has to fix things or always has to step in. You're the reliable one, or maybe you're the dependable one at work. And so you end up taking on way more projects that really belong to your coworkers, and you take them on to yourself. Or maybe you're in that season of life right now where your kids are grown, they're out of the house, but they still really need you, while your parents are also aging. And so you feel caught in this kind of middle ground of like, where do I step in, and how do I step in, and how do I meet the needs of other people? Or maybe even in a small way, like your spouse, your husband is going to ask you after church, where do you want to eat? And what you really want is Chinese, but as every wife says, I don't really care, you choose. And so you end up having pizza, and then you're grumpy because you really wanted Chinese, but you didn't speak up and say anything. Wives, please say something. We want to know what you really think when we ask you where you want to eat. Sorry, I'm not speaking from personal experience there at all. is it okay for a Christian to ever say no to the needs of other people? How do you draw the line between compassion and codependency? I mean, don't we have a banner on the wall over here that says 0 needs among us? Are we just lying to y'all? Well, Scripture lives in this exact tension too. Paul, for example, is writing a letter to the church in Galatia. In Galatians 6, he says this to the church in Galatia. He says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Okay, great. Meet each other's needs. But then literally right after that, a couple verses later, this is what he says. For each will have to bear his own load. So which one is it? Anybody else feel like they live in this tension sometimes when it comes to following Jesus, or is it just me? I mean, this is a tension a lot of us live in. And some of you, you've experienced burnt out in your life because of this tension. Others of you have been steamrolled in relationships because of this tension. What does it look like as a faithful follower of Jesus, how to care, but not to carry the load of other people? Well, there's a guy in the Old Testament that most of you have probably heard of. His name is Moses. And Moses is the leader and the judge of the Israelite people. And about 3 months before the passage we're going to look at, we're going to be in Exodus 18 in just a moment here, but about 3 months before this passage takes place, Moses led the people of Israel after a series of signs and wonders out of Egypt. So they are just 3 months out of Egypt at this point, and they haven't yet arrived at Sinai, where God is going to give Moses the 10 Commandments, and the golden calf incident happens, and the covenant and the law, and all of that stuff happens at Sinai. This is right before they get to Sinai, and I want you to take a look at what happens and what is happening with Moses in this moment. And so his father Jethro is coming to the father-in-law Jethro is coming to the wilderness to visit him and the people. Take a look at what happens here. In verse 8 of chapter 18, then Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardship that had come upon them in the way, and how the Lord had delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the good that the Lord had done to Israel, in that he had delivered them out of the hand of the Egyptians. Jethro said, blessed be the Lord who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, and has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. So Jethro is joining his son-in-law Moses, and they are celebrating all that the Lord has done. But then Jethro notices something. He notices that this group of Hebrew Israelite people are a bunch of belly-aching, backsliding, bitter, just group of babies. And Moses is a burnt-out babysitter of 3 million people. Moses is burnt out. And this is what Jethro says next to Moses in verse 13. The next day Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood around Moses from morning till evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw that all that he was doing for the people, he said, what is it that you are doing for the people? Why do you sit alone and all the people stand around you from morning till evening? And Moses said to his father-in-law, because the people come to me to inquire of God when they have a dispute. They come to me, and I decide between one person and another, and I make them know the statutes of God and his laws. Moses' father-in-law said to him, what you are doing is not good. Notice something here. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, celebrates what God has done, and he challenges what Moses is doing. In the same breath, he celebrates what God has done, and he challenges what Moses is doing. In other words, what Jethro is saying to Moses is he's saying, Moses, you have a God complex. You are meeting all of the needs of the people. And then the hinge point of this entire passage is what Jethro says next in verse 18. He says this, you and the people with you will certainly wear yourselves out, for the thing is too heavy for you. You are not able to do it alone. Another translation of this passage says, you and the people around you will certainly burn out if you keep going at this pace. You will. You're trying to carry this burden all on your own. You're trying to carry this alone. What Moses is doing here is Moses is doing what we would call over-functioning. Meaning, when we say over-functioning, I want to show you what this means here, if you want to put that definition up on the screen there. Over-functioning is doing for others what they can and should do for themselves. It's stepping beyond our God-given role and calling and doing for others what they can and should do for themselves. But then there's the flip side, because if Moses is over-functioning, Israel is under-functioning. And we're going to get to that in a moment here, but I want to just ask you, is there an area of your life where you are over-functioning right now? Where you are stepping beyond your God-given calling and role and doing for others what they can and should do for themselves. Maybe for you, you are the first text in the morning and the last text at night, and you are available 24/7 for the people around you. You're over-functioning, and you're exhausted, and you're tired, and you're burnt out. For others of you, you meet the needs of all the people around you, but then you look at your own heart and you find yourself bitter for how much they are actually relying on you. You find resentment growing in your heart toward the people that God has actually called you to serve. I mean, there's so many different areas that we could talk about this reality of over-functioning. It happens at work. It happens at school. It happens in our families. It even happens in the church. Over-functioning is doing for others what they can and should do for themselves, and that is Moses. But then there's the flip side of that, and it's under-functioning. And this is Israel. Under-functioning is neglecting what God has called you to do for others. And both of these are a problem in this community that Jethro is speaking to. Both of these are an issue. In other words, the Israelites are staying in this place of deep immaturity simply because they're just an echo chamber for one another, and they're just feeding off each other's own immaturity, and they're staying stuck in this place. And Moses becomes the center point of this entire community, trying to solve everybody's problems for them. You see, my friends, there is a dark side to over-functioning, and there's a dark side to under-functioning. And I've said this for years, but if a church, a community of people, doesn't learn to live in balance of functioning in the God-given role and God-given calling, every single person who calls themselves part of a community learn to live in this balance, then there's some very real issues that can create in a community. Can I get that water from you, Mark? Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I'm like coming off of sickness from this last week, but it's still, I don't usually talk this much. I'm just kidding. I talk this much all the time. There's some dark sides, right, to when we live out of balance with this. I want to show you what some of the dark sides are, and you see this in the life of Moses throughout his entire ministry to the Israelite people. Number one, both over-functioning and under-functioning breed resentment. When we live out of balance, this can breed resentment. You see this in Moses throughout the course of his ministry. How many times is Moses just furious with the people that God has called him to lead? You see this from the beginning of his life and ministry to them to the end. It is a problem throughout the entire thing. I mean, Moses literally is so mad at the people in the book of Numbers that he disobeys God, strikes a rock out of his anger, and can't even lead the people into a promised land because he's got so much resentment towards the people that he's leading. It doesn't seem like Moses actually learns his lesson throughout the course of his ministry. So that's the first one. Number two, both over-functioning and under-functioning perpetuate immaturity. They keep people stuck. They keep them immature. In Numbers chapter 11, Moses says to the Lord, why do you expect me to carry these children like children? Why do you expect me to carry them like babies? Like he is acknowledging that this is keeping them really immature. It's keeping them in a place where they are stuck spiritually, where they're actually not able and willing to grow out of the place that they are in, which is just this place of perpetual complaining and bitterness. So that's number 2. And then number 3, both over-functioning and under-functioning destroy community. Destroys community. I just want you to take a look at this list here. Do you see this playing out in your life anywhere? Where you're living out of balance between these two, between over-functioning and under-functioning? Maybe you have an adult child, and this child has failed to launch. And so you feel like a perpetual babysitter of them. And you find yourself in this place where you're just resenting them. You're bitter towards them. But maybe for you, you're enabling them to stay in a place of immaturity. Do you ever see this in the church? Do you see this where maybe you're in a small group and it's really out of balance? The people that overcommit or overfunction in the group, they are the first to speak and they always speak, and you find yourself resentful because you're not as fast to speak, and you have a leader that doesn't know how to sit in the awkwardness of silence for a period of time. Can I just say, small group leaders, first of all, thank you for what you do. Second of all, one of the most important skills that you can learn in leading a small group is how to sit in the awkwardness of silence for longer than you think is necessary in a group. There will be times where people don't speak up. That doesn't mean they don't care. Sometimes that just means they're processing and they're thinking, and some of the best conversations come on the other side of small group leaders able and willing to sit in an extended period of awkward silence, allowing for people to speak and the Spirit to move. Learning to live in balance of these two things, under-functioning and over-functioning, not being too slow to bail people out and not being too fast to bail people out, is a skill of spiritual maturity. Have you found yourself living in the imbalance? So I want you to take a look at the solution that Jethro gives to Moses. He comes alongside Moses, and this is what he says to Moses in verse 21 of Exodus 18. He says, "Moreover, look for able men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe, and place such men over the people as chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. And let them judge the people at all times. Every great matter they shall bring to you, but any small matter they shall decide themselves. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you." Don't miss that. They will bear the burden with you. If you do this, God will direct you. You will be able to endure, and all the people also will go to their place in peace. I am convinced that every single one of us need a Jethro in our life from time to time. Those who find themselves over-functioning, you need people in your life who are willing to come alongside you and say, hey, you're trying to balance all of the plates on your own, and when you drop one of them, you convince yourself that it's your fault because you should be able to carry all of this at the same time, when God never actually designed you to carry all of this at the same time. You're just carrying too much right now. We need Jethros. We need Jethros who are willing to come alongside us and say, you need to let go. You need to let go of that person. You need to let go of that thing that you are holding on to, that you are carrying. You are called to care, but you are not called to carry in that way. We need Jethros. I would say, too, under-functioning people need Jethros as well. Under-functioning people need Jethros who are willing to say, it is time to step up and step out. It is time to carry your own load. It is time to take responsibility for your life and for your spiritual health and for your spiritual growth. It is time to step up and step out. Both groups of people need Jethros in our life, don't we? I need Jethros in my life. Like just this last week, I was pretty sick. And some of that came from, and I'm just being honest here, I had not taken a day off from work in about a month this past month. And it wasn't like just me overworking, but we have a lot of people in our church getting married right now, which is amazing. Like, I love that. But between weddings and workshops and all of that stuff, like, I just realized I hadn't really taken a day off. And my physical health caught up with me. And it's not the end of the world, but I was meeting with our advisory team this last Wednesday, and they just screamed at me over this. No, I'm kidding. Tim, I love you. Gary, no. Jen, they're half of them are here right now. No, they did not scream at me, but they lovingly and gently, like Jethro's do, said, hey, you need to log off social media. Like, turn off Instagram for a couple days. You need to take a day off. You need to breathe. You need to rest. And like Jethro's, they came up to me and gave me this gentle reminder that, hey, like, you can't carry this on your own. And what I love about our advisory team here at the church is they remind me that even as a pastor, I'm not called to carry the weight of this alone. I can't. No one of us can. We all need Jethros in our life. I do, and so do you. And so let's go back to Galatians 6, where Paul seems to contradict himself, where he seems to say two different things. And let's take a look under the surface at what he's actually saying, because I believe if we can understand what Paul is actually saying here in Galatians 6, it helps us determine how we say yes to the right things and how we say no to the wrong things, how we learn to live in this tension. And so reading this once again, Paul says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. And then a couple verses later, he says, for each will have to bear his own load. So which one is it? The answer is both. It's both of these things. In fact, if you dig into the original language here, the word used for burdens, and by the way, Jethro talks about Moses bearing the burden of the people, but the Greek word in the New Testament used for burdens is the Greek word bare. And bare refers to this outrageous heaviness that one person cannot carry on their own. And so bare can mean a massive life event like a divorce or a cancer diagnosis or the loss of a loved one or a life-altering event. I mean, think big life-altering things that we were never designed to carry on our own. That's what Paul calls us to carry with one another. You know what else is referred to as bare or burden in the New Testament? Ministry itself. The church is a burden. And I don't mean that in a negative way, right? All it means is it's just something heavy to carry. The church ministry is something that no one person can carry on their own. We actually all are called to bear the burden of ministry together. Like, if you are part of this church, if New Life is your home church, you are called by the New Testament, by God's vision for his church, to carry your own piece of this load that is too heavy for any one of us to carry on our own. And yet we've been conditioned by our culture to believe that the burden of ministry falls on one person in the church, the pastor, and we just come on Sundays and we attend and we consume, but that's not God's vision for the church. God's vision for the church is that we all pick up a piece of this burden and we carry it together. What a beautiful vision for what church is supposed to be. That there's actually something better that God does when we each carry a part of the burden. Many of you in our church know some people by the names of John and Heather Fitzgerald very, very well. John and Heather are a couple who have been part of our church for many, many years. And John and Heather, I would say, are two people who have, my goodness, have they carried their portion of the burden throughout the years. I mean, they've served in so many different capacities around here, from kids ministry to worship team to essential store to serving on my advisory team. I went on a missions trip with Heather to Guatemala a couple years ago, and I've just come to love and know these two really, really well over the years, and I could not have more respect and admiration for who they are as people. But about 4 weeks ago, John was riding his motorcycle on Division Street, and he was commuting. and another driver swerved into his lane and hit John head on his motorcycle. And for the last 4 weeks, John and Heather has spent their entire lives in a hospital room as John has clung to his life, going through multiple surgeries of reconstruction and just a long, long road of rehabilitation. And I've visited John a couple different times throughout the season, and just this last Wednesday, it was their 26th year anniversary, and I got to do a vow renewal ceremony with them in the hospital room. Probably one of the top 5 things that I will remember from just ministry. It was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. I mean, none of us had dry eyes in that room. And Heather said something to me as I was leaving. She actually gave me this card. She asked me to read it to the church. And I just want to read this in Heather's own words to you guys here this morning as she's reflected on these last 4 weeks with her husband in the hospital. She said this: "To our New Life Church family, we want to thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for your love and support during this very difficult time in our lives. Your prayers, yard signs, meals, gift cards, and cash really have helped us and our family. It's so humbling knowing that so many people care for us so deeply. Your support has really helped get us through the hardest days. Thank you all so much. We love you. John and Heather Fitzgerald and family." I share that with you today because I want to say to you, I am so proud of you for how you have helped bear the burden that they cannot bear on their own. They are in one of those seasons that is bare. It is so heavy, and they cannot carry it on their own. And you as a church have done such a good job helping them carry this heavy burden with them. So well done. And then there's a flip side here. There's a flip side to what Paul is saying in Galatians chapter 6. And this is just as important. And I actually believe this is part of the key to freedom of the gospel. And I'll explain what that means in just a moment. But the flip side is that he says, on one hand, bear each other's burdens, right? That is a John and Heather situation. We bear those burdens with people who are walking through seasons and stuff in their lives that they cannot bear on their own. But then the flip side is each one should carry his own load. And so if the first word, burden, is the Greek word bare, the second word, load, is a completely different word with a completely different idea. And when you read this word, what do you read? Looks like portion, doesn't it, right? Wrong. It means backpack. It's what I thought too. It's the word portion. It's a Greek word, and it just symbolizes this idea of a backpack. It's yours to carry on your own. And this word is more of the day-to-day stuff of life. Like, you are called to bear your own load, to bear responsibility for your own spiritual growth. You are called to, nobody else can carry this for you. You are called to carry the steps forward that you take in your faith. You are called to carry the load of your family life. You are called to carry your own spiritual health and well-being. There is a load, a backpack that each of us have been given. You and you alone will one day stand before your Maker and be asked to give an account for the life that you live, to give an account for the load that you carried on your own. That doesn't mean people can't come alongside you and encourage you and walk with you, but ultimately that load is yours to carry. And I actually believe that understanding these two, bare and portion, burden and load, is actually key to helping us unlock and understand what Jesus did for us on the cross. See, there is a burden. There is a bare that is so heavy that without somebody to come alongside you and carry that with you and for you, you will be crushed by it. And that is the burden of sin that lives on every single one of our backs. It is too heavy for you to carry on your own. And on the cross, Jesus said, give me your burden. Give me your sin. Lay that down before me. And let me carry what you were never designed to carry on your own. It's at the cross where we transfer the burden of our sin onto Jesus. I can't carry the burden of your sin for you. And your small group leader can't carry the burden of your sin for you. And parents, you can't carry the burden of your child's sin on your back. You weren't built to carry that. Jesus was. He's the only one who can carry that heavy of a burden. But then there's a flip side to this. There's what Jesus has carried. And then there's what we are called to pick up and carry. And Jesus would say it this way, that we are called to pick up our own cross and come after him and follow him. That we are called, we are responsible for transferring ownership of our lives over to him. He will not do that part for us. That is your choice. And he loves you enough to give you the choice. See, there are moments in Jesus' ministry where he let people walk away who are not willing to carry their own load. Judas walked away. In John 6, there's an interaction where several of Jesus' disciples, like the larger group of disciples, come to him and they say, this is a really hard teaching. Your words are really harsh and we cannot bear the weight of it. And they walk away. Jesus let people walk away. He loved them enough to be willing to let them go. So what I'm trying to say here is that Jesus lived in this tension perfectly. He lived in the tension of carrying the stuff we cannot carry on our own and calling people. He let the rich young ruler walk away because the rich young ruler was not willing to pick up his cross, carry his own load, and surrender his wealth. So I want to ask you here this morning, is there an area of your life where you are living out of balance between these two things? And some of you, you are being crushed under the weight of your own sin and your own shame. And like you look out at our world right now and you have so many questions and so many longings, and there's stuff that doesn't make sense to you and just hurts really, really badly, and there's anger inside of you towards it, and you're just not sure where you land in it, and you've never transferred ownership of your life over to the person of Jesus. You've never acknowledged before Jesus, this weight is too heavy of a burden for me to carry. I cannot carry it on my own. Some of you, you have shame that you're living with, that you have carried for decades, secrets that you've carried on your own for decades, and you've never taken a step out of yourself to invite someone else to carry that with you. Small groups are an incredible place to take a step like that. To invite others to carry that burden with you. But then there's some of you here this morning, and man, what God is calling you to do is he is calling you to take the first step today in carrying your own load. Saying, Jesus, everything I've been doing has not been working in my life. The burden is too heavy, and I need you. I need you every step of the way. I need you in all of it. I need you in the big things. I need you in the little things. And Jesus, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to walk alongside you. Jesus, I'm willing to lay down my sin before you. I'm willing to surrender. Jesus, there is no sin that is more pleasing and desirable to me than you are. And so I'm going to pick up my own load and I'm going to come after you. And the way that I do this is by repenting of my sins, laying those things down and turning away and turning towards you and following you, because I believe you are that good. If you're here this morning and you've never made that decision to transfer ownership of your life, to lay your life down at the cross and offer it to Jesus as an act of surrender and go after him, I can promise you it is the best kind of life. Not an easy life. Not a problem-free life. a life where you are never alone, where you have a friend and a Savior and a Lord who walks beside you. That you have the gift of the Holy Spirit given to you in seasons and moments that don't make sense or are confusing or painful or anger-bearing, who guides you, who walks with you, who leads you into truth. That's the promise. So if you're here this morning and you've never taken that first step to trust in Jesus, to transfer ownership of your life, to say, Jesus, will you bear the burden of my sin because I cannot carry it on my own? I want to invite you to just simply pray this prayer in your heart as I pray it out loud this morning. And receive Jesus as Lord, the one and only one who can carry the burden of your sin. If that's you, pray this in your heart with me right now. Jesus, I come to you, and I acknowledge that my sin, the things that I've done, the things that I've thought that are not of you, is too heavy a burden to bear. And Jesus, it is crushing me. And today I acknowledge that you died on the cross, that it was on the cross, Jesus, where you took the burden of my sin onto yourself. Thank you for doing that, Jesus. And I believe in my heart, Lord, that you raised again 3 days later, and you call me into a new life with you. You call me to pick up my load and come after you and walk with you. And so, Jesus, this morning, I receive that. I want to walk with you. I want to learn from you. I want to grow from you, God. Take my life. It is yours.